John McMullen on the line to talk to us as we do each and every day at this time to find out all things Eagles. John, how are you on this Monday?
Doing well, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. And I got to see the clips over the weekend of Darby in town, but wearing a bucket hat, Darby in town, but actually wearing a helmet. The progression of one Ronald Darby. All eyes on Ronald Darby, right?
Yeah, and, it is a big deal. I don't want to downplay it. This is a 23-year-old corner who was the runner-up to Defensive Rookie of the Year a couple years ago. So this is a significant upgrade at their worst position on paper. You could tell because, Sunday, he obviously couldn't practice the first day. That's where you saw him in the bucket hat. So you think about Sunday being 16th day of training camp, first play of team drills, Ronald Darby's your starting left corner. So that tells you two things. It tells you how talented he is, number one, and it tells you just how desperate the Eagles were at the cornerback position.
I know that his skill set is something the Eagles have been lacking, the ability to burn, the ability to cover a receiver that has speed on the opposite side, and Buffalo had sort of fallen away from that, right? He's thrilled to get to a place where the coordinator knows what his strengths are and can design toward that.
Yeah, Buffalo obviously hired Sean McDermott. He was here for a while, so the people know him. You kind of see it from the old Carolina defense and how they handled the Josh Norman escapade in the fact that their mentality is we play a ton of cover three, so why do we need a lockdown corner? I don't necessarily agree with that, but talked to Corey Graham, who was also in Buffalo last season with Ronald Darby and the changes there. And he said himself, you know what, if you're going to play cover three all the time, you don't need a guy who runs 4-3-5. So it was a trade where obviously they needed help at the wide receiver position after spinning off Sammy Watkins, and they weren't going to utilize Darby's skill set anyway. So from their standpoint, that's why they made the deal.
John McMullen with us. John, the sprints that were run after practice, that blew up on social media. Was that addressed of why Carson Wentz was leading everybody in wind sprints at the end of practice?
Yeah. Now, we asked Frank Reich, who spoke, if it was punishment. He said, no, Frank was running himself. So just team camaraderie and things like that, just having some fun, because now you're in the dog days of camp. I mean, this was day 17. They've gone basically 2.5 hours for 3 consecutive days. So it's starting to wear on people. And this is when you need those sort of team-building exercise. I don't think there was much to it. It wasn't anger. I think more of the anger came out of last Thursday's game and the fact that they went so hard 3 consecutive days, because I don't think Doug Peterson denied there was anything to it, but I don't think he was very happy about the performance in Green Bay, and that's why they went so hard for the past 3 days.
Yeah, I saw that 2.5 hours, one of their longer practices of the summer. Several reports came out about that. Before we leave Darby, he's trying to get a new number too, huh?
Yeah. Wendell Smallwood, look out. So don't buy the 35. Don't buy the Darby jersey. Not because he's not going to be here, but he's going to change his number at some point. He's not happy with number 35. It is not a big number for a cornerback in the history of this game. And LeGarrette Blount had it, and he was trying. There's something about 35. Everybody tries to drop it as quickly as they can.
John, switching over to the offensive side of the ball, over the weekend, Carson Wentz, he was actually kind of emotional about Jordan Matthews going away, describing him as his best friend, saying that Matthews, was somebody that he had not just a good on-the-field relationship, but off-the-field relationship. John, do you think that, considering Wentz's relationship with Matthews, if Wentz was maybe in year 4 or year 6 or year 8 of his career, if the Eagles might have considered more of the relationship between Matthews and Wentz before trading him, as opposed to him being only in his second year?
No, I don't. I mean, it is a business, and they understood how close those two players were when they made the trade, but it was made out of necessity. And we've been talking about it on this show for months. Jordan Matthews was not in this team's plans. Howie Roseman has a history of extending players early that he wants. So that was a red flag. As soon as he didn't get an extension, you knew something was going on because that's just not the way the Eagles do business. So he was going to be out of here as a free agent after this season if he played it out. So from their standpoint, it's about getting better at a position of need by giving up a position they think they're a little bit deeper at. And it was totally from a business standpoint. And as I said, they understand the relationship, not only with Carson Wentz. I mean, Jordan Matthews is one of the most popular players in that locker room as a whole. So that's a difficult part of it, but it's something you have to do, and it's something that happens in every NFL city, not just this one.
John, you asked Frank Reich at the presser today, was Jordan Matthews gone, who's going to be the slot receiver, if it's going to be Aguilar. And he said, obviously it starts with Aguilar, but he has to step up. And then he ran down half the other receivers on the team. So it seems to me that this is not Nelson Aguilar's, job per se. This is basically, maybe they want Aguilar to win it, but they're not closing the door on anybody else stealing that third wide receiver spot.
Well, I think they see what we all see. I mean, Nelson's had been very good in practice at times, but he still has trouble catching the football consistently. You saw it in Green Bay. I mean, on the 2-point conversion, that was a fastball, and it's a difficult catch, but that's a catch good receivers in this league make rather easily. And that's his hiccup. He just doesn't have the best hands in the world. So you don't know if the consistency is going to be there. But this time of year, it's almost, Doug earlier kind of paid lip service to a committee approach and talked about Trey Burton and Pumphrey and Sproles in the slot. And that's what I was trying to get out of Frank. I just don't believe the Eagles are going to go in that direction. This is an 11 personnel team. They want 3 wide receivers on the field more often than not. They want that athleticism out there, and if Aguilar falls on his face again, then it is going to be the other guys, whether it's you want an undersized guy like Bryce Treggs or maybe Mac Hollins if you want the size like Jordan provided, or even Marcus Johnson, somebody of that nature. Those would be the guys behind Nelson, but it's pretty clear they want Nelson to seize that job.
John McMullen with us, our 97.3 ESPN Eagles insider. You can read his articles on our website at 973ESPN.com, including today's, talking about Ronald Darby. And also in your NovaCare notes, John, you mentioned Nelson Aguilar, or right near the end of the article, you mentioned Nelson Aguilar, so I'll bring up the battle that he had with Malcolm Jenkins today. How can going against Malcolm Jenkins on a regular basis make Nelson Aguilar a better football player?
Well, obviously, in this case, I mean, it was Nelson making Malcolm bad, and that was kind of caused some chippiness. It's difficult, and that's the issue the Eagles have at the nickelback position. Malcolm tends to be very good when he can get hands on receivers because he's so strong at that particular position. But when you're dealing with a Cole Beasley or a Julian Edelman or just really those quick twitch guys in the slot, Malcolm does not perform well in that position. And that's sort of what Nelson Aguilar can bring. I'm not comparing them to those guys, but he's got that kind of quickness and route running ability. And he embarrassed Malcolm on 2 consecutive occasions, and they were sort of chirping back and forth. And then the third time, Malcolm got him on the line of scrimmage and just lit him up. And so that was a pretty interesting an exciting part of practice, especially this late, it was the two going sort of mano a mano in the red zone. And it sort of showed you the strengths and weaknesses of Malcolm Jenkins in the slot and why this team basically for 3 years now has been looking for a true slot cornerback, and they haven't been able to find one, and they always default to Malcolm Jenkins. They're still looking for one. Obviously, Darby helps in sort of the domino effect, whether it's Ron Brooks or whether it's Patrick Robinson or somebody of that nature. They need to get a real slot cornerback.
John McMullen with us. John, let's get into the running game a little bit, because I know there were several questions directed to Frank Reich about the running game, and you talked a little bit about the intensity of the practices over the weekend, maybe a result of the fact that things didn't go so right for the Birds in their first preseason game with the Packers. What were some of the issues, or what were some of the things discussed about the run game today specifically to Frank Reich, and does he have a better idea of what the order is going to be with that run game?
Well, I think they know what the order is going to be. The problem, to me, it goes to the head coach and to a little bit of that, the offensive coordinator, in the fact, and I wrote about that after the game on 973ESPN.com, is the fact that the balance was so disproportionate in a preseason environment, and that's bad. I mean, you can understand it in a regular season game because you're trying to win. And if things are not going your way, and obviously you can't run the football, well, it's at least somewhat understandable why you go to the pass, because you're trying to win a football game. It's a totally different set of circumstances in the preseason. You're supposed to be working on things. And actually, if you can't do something, that's the time to work on it, so you can do it. And I was very concerned that Doug Peterson just continued to pass the ball, and eschewed the running game. Frank said that's basically how games develop. And again, I agree with him in the regular season, but this was a preseason game. This is something you should have scripted out. Forget about the Green Bay Packers. You're working on the Philadelphia Eagles. You're not trying to win the football game. You're trying to evaluate the players they had. But as far as the running game moving forward, Blunt's going to be the guy, and Wendell Smallwood's going to be his backup, and the third down guys are Darren Sproles and Donnell Pumphrey. That's how this thing's going to shake out, barring injury.
I know that Frank Reich brought up the term run efficiency today, and then he was asked to define that later. What did you take away from his definition of run efficiency and his discussions about the run game?
Well, no, I mean, that's how everyone describes run efficiency in the NFL. I mean, what he was trying to do is explain, for instance, if it's 3rd or 4th and 1 and you have a 2-yard run, well, a fan might surmise that's not a great run. But from a coach's standpoint, it's an efficient run. And the Eagles were efficient in that type of situation last year, whether it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. They were top 10 in efficient running game. But that's not the issue. The issue is the balance. And the issue is that Carson Wentz dropped back 600-plus times last year, and Matt McMullen threw it 42 times in the preseason. I can't even tell you the last time I've seen a quarterback throw it 40-plus times in the preseason. Because obviously Nick Foles wasn't there, but you still had 3 guys, Carson Wentz and Dane Evans being the 2 others. That tells you how much the Eagles threw the football. So the concern is balance and becoming a more balanced team and not being a team that defaults to the pass at the first sign of trouble.
John, you mentioned the quarterback, Matt McMullen. He didn't look too good. Now, part of that was because he threw a lot, but part of it also was because he just didn't look too good at times. Nick Foles looks like he's not going to play in the next preseason game. So if McMullen has another rough performance on the field, do you expect this team to go with a 2-quarterback depth chart possibly for the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I always expected him to go that way. Even before training camp started, when I did my 53-man roster projection, I only had him keeping 2 and cut McMullen. I just think that's the way the NFL is going as a whole, because the league has started to realize, and especially this team, which has been so good on special teams over the past number of years, they realize those back-end roster spots. It's more important to have perhaps a good special teams player than a third-string quarterback, because the mentality in this league is if you get to your third guy anyway, you're in a whole heap of trouble. So you can stash a young guy on the practice squad and bring him up if you need to. In worst-case scenario, you go out on the street because, as I said, if Carson Wentz gets hurt, and Nick Foles gets hurt, you're done anyway. So there's no use keeping a third quarterback around.
John, we know that they're probably going to go 3 tight ends. You mentioned they're going to go 2 quarterbacks. So are we assuming then moving into the regular season that's going to be 6 receivers and 4 running backs then?
Yeah, I had 6 and 4. You can do a little tweaking. I mean, if they're concerned about losing a Corey Clement, for instance, and not getting him on the practice squad, maybe they could keep him around. But I've always felt that the way the back-end receivers have played in this camp, Marcus Johnson specifically and Bryce Treggs, who's now back in the conversation, and even Shelton Gibson has come on of late over the past week or so. Has looked like a completely different player. The Eagles are going to cut a receiver or 2 that belongs in this league. As amazing as that sounds, considering how bad they were last year at the position. And when Jordan was here, they probably were going to cut 2 who should be on NFL rosters. So I do think ultimately they will keep 6 receivers.
John McMullen covers the Eagles. That's for us, 97.3 ESPN. You can check out his work at 97.3ESPN.com. You can follow him on Twitter at JF McMullen. Also covers the NFL for FanRag Sports. A couple of national items here, John. The word is coming out that Ezekiel Elliott, his suspension, although Roger Goodell made the decision to suspend Elliott, he did not personally attend the important meetings, i.e. the meetings where Elliott, his representation, the NFLPA, met with the little 4-man committee. He also did not personally meet with Miss Thompson, the accuser. So, is that a situation where that is maybe the linchpin that Elliott and the NFLPA can use against Goodell in them trying to get this suspension either reduced or removed?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at this. From the NFL standpoint, the appeal process, Roger Goodell can do whatever he wants. He's not involved with the investigation. He's never involved with investigations. That is, or I should say rarely, and he hasn't been since the change in sort of policy stemming from the Ray Rice issue. So that's sort of a red herring. But the players collectively bargained away their power, and he has essentially carte blanche to do what he wants. And he can suspend him for 6 games and not have a reason, to be perfectly honest. But they do have a reason. Now, in the past, they have shortened suspensions, and that'll be in negotiation. It comes down to Elliott's camp. What do they want to do? He's going to be suspended, ultimately. They could take it to court. They could take it to federal court and get a stay, which has happened many times in many cases in the past, and that means he wouldn't be suspended week 1. But ultimately, you see in Tom Brady, you see in every case, at the end, the NFL always wins for one reason, and that's because Roger Goodell has the power under collective bargaining to do this. So ultimately, he's going to be suspended. So it comes down to a strategy. Do you want to sit out 6 games to start the season and be ready for a playoff push? Or do you want to try to push the suspension off till next season? That kind of thing is what the Elliott camp has to discuss, and maybe even with the Cowboys. And maybe they can negotiate with the NFL and say, if you give us 4 games, we'll We won't take it to federal court. Things like that are what you're arguing over. But as far as whether Roger Goodell questioned the accuser, has nothing to do with anything, and that's just people trying to win in the court of public opinion, which may win you a few news cycles, but it's not going to do anything for Ezekiel Elliott.
John, up in New England, there's reports that Jacoby Brissett's place on the Patriots roster might not be safe anymore. It seems like he has not progressed enough from last season to this season. They're not very happy with what he has done in spring and now in the training camp, and that was a reason why the Patriots refused to trade Jimmy Garoppolo during the offseason. You buy it, or you think it's a bunch of bullphooey?
Well, I mean, they kept Jimmy Garoppolo and for a reason. The question is, what is the reason? I mean, in theory, it's going to be almost impossible to keep him when his rookie contract runs out after this season because so many people think he's a starting level signal caller. He's going to get significant money elsewhere. In the theory is Tom Brady. Certainly has shown no signs that he's slowing down. And ultimately, I think Bill Belichick would love to have Jimmy Garoppolo be the heir apparent, but I don't know if they can pull that off. As far as, how they move forward, if Garoppolo moves on, that's very, very, that could be true. If they're not happy with the way Brissett has worked, I could definitely see that's a Bill Belichick move. This is a guy who cut, Jonas Gray, because his alarm didn't go off basically 2 weeks after he ran for 200 yards. So he will cut you if you're not doing what he wants.
Wrapping up the NFL conversation with John McMullen, covers the NFL for FanRag Sports, also covers the Eagles for us, our Eagles insider at 97.3 ESPN.com. John, Leonard Fournette, he won't play this Thursday in the preseason. He's dealing with what they're calling a foot injury, pretty nondescript there. But Fournette has had injury issues and trouble at times in college. If he does have injury issues during his career in the NFL, how much of a rope are they going to be able to give him, considering that the Jaguars franchise this is a pivotal year for them. They got to figure out if Blake Bortles is their quarterback. They got to figure out if the direction they want to go in, those players are on the roster. So, if Fournette can't stay healthy in the next couple of years, doesn't that seem like that pick was a waste?
Well, it's way too early to say that. I mean, he's a talented guy. He's going to get a very long rope to answer your original question. He's a top 5 pick. That's the way it works. I mean, even if he falls on his face this year, that people are going to say, well, he's maybe getting used to it, and give him a chance in his second season in the NFL. And, perhaps if he falls flat again, then you don't pick up his 5th-year option. But if you're taking the guy in the top 5, he's going to get chance after chance after chance. And Fournette's going to get that in Jacksonville. They obviously need a running game that could help. That could do more to help Blake Bortles than anything else. And he's already been boasting that, hey, he doesn't even think the speed of the game is that much more different than the SEC, which I think he's going to get a slap in the face for that one pretty quickly. But nonetheless, I mean, Jacksonville, I think they lost double-digit games for 6 straight seasons now.
Right at the end there, John McMullen was with us, and then you heard that sound of no John McMullen, as he must have hit a dead spot. Yeah, 6 straight seasons, he was saying, Josh, that Jacksonville's lost games now and struggled down the stretch